I never wanted to sleep with my boss, but life doesn't always give you choices. When I sat on the edge of his desk that night, my heart pounding, I knew I was about to cross a line. His office smelled of expensive cologne and leather. The light was dim and I was afraid. "Nancy," Samuel said softly, his voice dripping with charm. He leaned closer, his eyes locking onto mine. "Are you sure about this?" Was I sure? I wasn't sure about anything anymore. All I knew was that my brother was lying in a hospital bed, and the doctors wouldn't lift a finger until we paid. My family's world was crumbling, and Samuel had the one thing that could fix it: money. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to nod. "Yes," I whispered. His smile widened. "Good," he said, standing up and locking the door behind me. In that moment, everything inside me screamed to run, to leave, to find another way. But there was no other way. Not for me, not for Danny, not for my family. I had sold my pride for survival. Now I had to live with the cost. My name is Nancy, and this is my story. I sat at my tiny desk in the brightly lit office of Zenith Consulting, my fingers flying over the keyboard. The air conditioner hummed softly, struggling to beat the Lagos heat, but nothing could calm the storm inside me. I adjusted my glasses and continued working, determined to meet the 5 p.m. deadline, but my mind was miles away. "Ah, Nancy, why are you so serious all the time?" Ivy, my bubbly colleague, teased as she breezed by. "Your laptop is not your boyfriend, you know." I forced a smile, trying to sound playful. If this laptop starts paying bills, I might just marry it. The truth? I didn't have the luxury to joke. I was drowning, but nobody could see it. That morning, I had woken up to the sound of my mother pacing the cramped living room of our 2-bedroom apartment. Her slippers scraped against the floor in a way that set my nerves on edge. "The hospital called again," she said, her voice heavy. "They need another 500,000 naira for Danny's next treatment." The words hit me hard. Where on earth would we find that kind of money? Our savings were gone. My bank loan application had been rejected. Every door I knocked on slammed in my face. "Mama, don't worry," I lied, though my voice cracked. "I'll figure something out." But how? At work, as I tried to focus on a spreadsheet, I noticed a shadow fall over my desk. I looked up and met the gaze of my boss, Mr. Samuel Johnson. "Good morning, Nancy," he said in his smooth, practiced voice. He looked impeccable, as always, in an expensive suit, the gold of his wristwatch catching the light. "Good morning, sir," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. Samuel leaned casually against my desk, his smile widening. "I've noticed you've been putting in extra hours lately. You're very dedicated. I like that." "Thank you, sir," I said, forcing a polite smile. But something about the way he said it, the way his eyes lingered, made my stomach tighten. The day dragged on, but my worries didn't let up. I needed money for Danny, but every call I made ended with an apology. Nobody could help, and the hospital wouldn't perform the surgery without upfront payment. As I packed up to leave for the day, Samuel called me into his office. "Nancy," he said, his voice unusually soft as I stepped inside. "I know you've been struggling." My heart skipped. How did he know? "I can help you," he said, leaning back in his chair, his eyes scanning my face. "Help me, sir?" I asked, unsure of where this was going. "Yes," he said, nodding. A cold wave of unease washed over me. "Sir, what do you mean?" I asked, my voice cautious. He replied by waving his hand as if to brush away my concern. "We'll talk more tomorrow. Don't worry, just know that you are a very beautiful girl." I left his office feeling very uncomfortable. How did he know about my problems? And what would he want in return for his so-called help? Back at home, I sat beside my little brother Danny, who was curled up on the couch watching cartoons. He looked so small, his fragile body swallowed by the cushions, but he still managed to give me a weak smile. "Sis, when I get better, I'll become a doctor and take care of you and Mama," he said. I blinked back tears and stroked his hair. I know you will, Danny, I whispered, but my heart felt like it was breaking. I spent the night tossing and turning, haunted by Samuel's offer. My mind raced with thoughts of Danny's illness and the mounting bills. Opportunities in Lagos seemed to come with strings attached, and I had a sinking feeling that Samuel's strings were more like chains. The next morning, I walked into the office with a hollow sense of dread. By lunchtime, I'd made up my mind. Forget Samuel, I was going to apply for a loan from the company itself. Desperation had stripped me of pride. I found myself sitting across from Mr. Ocon, the HR manager, with my loan application in hand. His desk was a mess, files stacked haphazardly around a half-eaten meat pie. The greasy smell turned my empty stomach, but I forced myself to focus. "I'm sorry, Nancy," he said at last, shaking his head. "The company isn't approving personal loans right now." "But this is an emergency," I pleaded, my voice cracking. "My brother, he needs surgery. Please, sir." He sighed and dabbed his sweaty forehead with a handkerchief. "I wish I could help, but my hands are tied. Have you tried your bank?" I clenched my fists under the table, fighting back tears. If I had a nearer for every time someone told me that, I wouldn't need a loan. My mind went back to the night before. I had been sitting with my mum in the living room, staring at the latest hospital bill in her hands. "Maybe we should sell the generator," she suggested hesitantly. I snapped. "Sell the generator? And then what? Burn lanterns to see at night?" My frustration was spilling out. Just then, my phone buzzed. A message from the landlord. "Your rent is overdue. You have 1 week." I let the phone slip from my hand and stared blankly at the wall. "Nancy," my mother said softly, sitting beside me, "you've done so much for this family. Maybe it's time to pray for a miracle." I didn't respond. I wanted to believe in miracles, but faith wouldn't pay the hospital or stop Danny's suffering. The loan application to the company had failed. I was even more desperate now. I hid in the storage room to call my mother. My hands trembled as I dialed. "Mama, I don't know what to do anymore," I whispered, barely able to get the words out. "The hospital won't treat Danny without the money, and now the landlord—" I didn't realize that Samuel, my boss, was standing outside the door listening. Later that evening, he called me into his office. "I overheard you earlier on the phone with your mother," he said gently. His sudden kindness only unsettled me further. "You're going through a lot." I felt my face burn. "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to disturb anyone." "It's fine," he said, leaning back in his chair. "I admire you. Not everyone would work this hard for their family." I nodded cautiously, unsure of where he was going. "I want to help you, Nancy," he said, his smile warm but his eyes sharp. "Let me give you the money for Danny's treatment." "Really?" My heart leapt with a dangerous mix of hope and fear. "Of course," he replied smoothly. Then, after a pause, "But I'll need something in return." My stomach churned. "What kind of favor?" "I think you already know, Nancy." "I think you already know." For days I avoided him, but as Danny's condition worsened and the hospital became more insistent, I felt cornered. One evening, Samuel approached my desk as I worked late. "Nancy," he said softly, "have you made a decision?" I don't think I can." "Nancy," he interrupted, his voice firm, "this is your chance to save your brother. Don't throw it away." That night I sat on my bed, staring at my phone. Samuel's message was clear. "Tomorrow night, my office. Don't be late." The next day passed in a haze. When the office emptied out, I stayed behind, my heart pounding as I walked to Samuel's office. The building was quiet. My heels echoed in the empty hallway. When I entered, Samuel was already waiting, his usual charming smile in place. "You're right on time," he said, locking the door behind me. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "Let's just get this over with." I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He chuckled, circling me like a predator sizing up his prey. No need to be so tense, Nancy. This is just business. The air was thick with tension. Samuel stepped closer, his cologne overpowering, and brushed a strand of hair from my face. You're beautiful, he murmured, his voice low. I've always admired your strength. I flinched, but I didn't move away. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to run, but the image of Danny hooked up to machines held me in place. Samuel's hand rested lightly on my shoulder, then slid down my arm. Relax, he said, his tone dripping with false reassurance. This will be easy. His touch made my skin crawl, but I forced myself to stay still. When he leaned in, I closed my eyes, praying it would be over quickly. Time stretched endlessly. It wasn't painful, just cold, mechanical, and so humiliating. He made a show of being gentle, as though that would make it less degrading, less wrong. When it was over, I felt like a stranger in my own body. You did well, Samuel said, adjusting his tie as if we'd just finished a business meeting. The money will be in your account by tomorrow morning. I nodded numbly and walked out, each step feeling heavier than the last. By the time I got home, I couldn't stop shaking. Danny's face lit up when he saw me. Sis, the doctor said I can start my treatment soon, right? Yes, Danny, I whispered, forcing a smile. You'll get better, I promise. But deep down, I wasn't sure if I'd ever feel whole again. The next morning, I walked into the hospital, clutching an envelope filled with the money Samuel had transferred. I handed it over to the nurse, who nodded briskly and assured me Danny's treatment would begin immediately. Relief washed over me, but it was fleeting. As I watched them wheel Danny away for surgery, the weight of what I had done bore down on me like a stone. I had saved my brother, but at what cost? The shame lingered like a shadow, and it became heavier when Violet, Samuel's wife, started acting strangely. It began subtly, a sharp glance when she dropped by the office unexpectedly, her lips pursed in suspicion. But things escalated quickly. One afternoon, she stormed in wearing a striking red dress, her heels clicking loudly on the tiled floor. She didn't pause to greet anyone, heading straight for Samuel's office and slamming the door behind her. From my desk, I could hear her voice rise. You think I'm stupid, Samuel? She shouted, her words slicing through the office buzz. You think I don't know about your little extracurricular activities? The room fell silent as everyone strained to hear. My heart raced. Was this about me? Days later, she returned, her expression even fiercer. This time, she wasn't heading for Samuel. She was heading straight for me. She slapped a folder onto my desk so hard it startled me. Explain this, she demanded, her voice echoing across the room. I froze, my hands trembling as I opened the folder. Inside were blurry photographs of me leaving Samuel's office late at night, a copy of the bank transfer he had made to me, and a note scrawled in angry red ink. Is this what loyalty looks like? Mrs. Violet, it's not what you think, I stammered, my voice barely audible. Oh, really? She sneered, her voice dripping with venom. So you didn't take money from my husband in exchange for favors? The office erupted into whispers. My cheeks burned as I felt their stares pierce through me. I was trying to save my brother, I said, tears welling up in my eyes. I didn't have a choice. Violet wasn't moved. So your solution was to destroy someone else's family? She leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Shame. On. You. Before I could respond, Samuel appeared and tried to steer his wife away. Violet, let's discuss this somewhere private, he pleaded, his voice shaky. Oh, now you care about privacy? She spat. Did you think about privacy when you were sneaking around with her? It was too much. I grabbed my bag and ran out of the office, tears blurring my vision. Eventually, I found myself sitting on a bench in a small park, my resignation letter crumpled in my hand. That night, my phone buzzed endlessly with messages. Ivy, my closest friend at work, was persistent. "Pick up, you stubborn goat," her text read. When I finally called her back, I didn't have the energy to explain everything. "You can't hide forever," Ivy scolded. "Come to my place tonight. I'm making jollof rice." The promise of her legendary jollof was enough to lure me out of hiding. Over dinner, I poured everything out. Ivy listened quietly, her playful demeanor replaced with a steely determination. "Nancy, this is not your fault," she said firmly. "Samuel is the real villain here. This can't be the only thing he's been doing. We can take him down. We just need proof." Her words lit a small flame inside me. Maybe I didn't have to let Samuel win. The next day, Ivy and I came up with a plan. We waited until the office had mostly emptied out, and when Samuel left for a late meeting, Ivy slipped me a flash drive. "What's this?" I asked, my hands shaking. "Back up," she said with a sly grin. "We're going to find out anything Samuel's been hiding." My stomach churned as I approached his office. What if it was like that Balthazar scandal in Equatorial Guinea, and I found hundreds of his intimate tapes with other women? I certainly hoped that wouldn't be the case. "Go," Ivy whispered, standing guard at the door. I slipped inside and closed the door behind me. I sat at his desk and powered his laptop, my heart pounding as the login screen appeared. "Password," I muttered under my breath. "Of course." "Try something obvious," Ivy whispered through the door. "Like what?" I hissed back. "Samuel 123? I tried it. Nothing. "How about Violet Forever?" "Not funny, Ivy." After a few failed attempts, I typed CEO 2023. The screen unlocked and I let out a breath of relief. I began combing through his files. At first, it was nothing but boring reports and client contracts. I was about to give up when I spotted a folder labeled Private. My pulse quickened as I opened it. Inside were files detailing massive sums of money funneled into personal accounts. There were invoices for luxury cars, a beach house in Lekki, and even a secret offshore account under the name TJ Holdings. "Oh my God," I whispered, my eyes scanning the evidence. "What is it?" Ivy asked. "Do we have a sex scandal?" peeking through the door. I laughed quietly. "No, Ivy, I'm glad I didn't have to see anything like that. He's been stealing from the company," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Copy everything," Ivy said, her tone sharp. "Now." My hands shook as I copied the files onto the flash drive. I kept glancing at the door, half expecting Samuel to burst in at any moment. Finally, the files finished transferring. I ejected the drive, logged off, and wiped the sweat from my palms. "Let's go," I said, slipping the drive into my bag. As we stepped out of the office, my heart was still racing. I wasn't sure what would come next, but for the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of hope. Now I had the power to fight back. That night, Ivy and I sat in her tiny apartment. The flash drive sat between us on the table. "This is big," Ivy said, her voice barely above a whisper. "If we leak this, Samuel is finished." I swallowed hard. "But how? What if they trace it back to us? You know how powerful he is." Ivy's lips curled into a mischievous grin. "Leave that to me. We're sending it anonymously, to Violet and the board. Let them handle him." My instinct screamed at me to back out, but something deeper urged me to go through with it. Samuel had manipulated and humiliated me, but this could be my chance to take back my power. The next morning, Samuel strolled into the office with his usual swagger, oblivious to what was coming. He greeted us with his fake charm, a smug grin plastered across his face. Watching him, I felt a mix of fear and anticipation churn in my stomach. By noon, you could feel the tension in the air. Violet and the board of directors gathered in the main conference room, their expressions grim. Employees whispered in hushed tones, speculating about the sudden meeting. I stayed at my desk, trying to focus on the spreadsheets in front of me, but I wasn't seeing anything. At exactly 1 p.m., Samuel was summoned. I watched him walk into the conference room. He looked so confident, Not a hint of unease. The door closed behind him and we all waited with anticipation. Minutes ticked by like hours. Then the door swung open and Samuel came out. But he wasn't the same man who had walked in. His face was ashen, his shoulders slumped, and his eyes darted around the room, avoiding everyone's gaze. Ivy leaned over her desk, a satisfied smile playing on her lips. "Look at him," she muttered, loud enough for only me to hear. "He knows he's done for." By the end of the day, the news broke. An official statement declared that Samuel had been suspended pending a full investigation into financial misconduct. Whispers turned into full-blown gossip and the office buzzed with the scandal. That evening, I received an email from Violet. My breath caught as I read her words. "I know you were behind this. Thank you for exposing the truth. I misjudged you, and I'm sorry. Violet Johnson." I reread the email twice, tears slipping down my cheeks. It wasn't just relief I felt. It was something deeper, something that had been absent for weeks. Hope. The days that followed felt surreal. Samuel's resignation was announced, and the office erupted with disbelief. He had been the untouchable CEO, the man who ruled with charm and intimidation. Now, he was just another cautionary tale. 2 days later, I was called into a private meeting with HR. I was scared as I walked into the room, half expecting a reprimand. But to my surprise, it wasn't HR, it was Violet. She looked different, stripped of her usual sharp-edged persona. Her simple dress and tired expression made her seem almost human. "Nancy," she began, gesturing for me to sit. "I know everything now. I know why you did what you did." I couldn't meet her eyes. "Mrs. Violet, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt anyone." She sighed deeply, her tone softening. "I've been angry, but not at you. Samuel betrayed me, betrayed this company. You were just caught in his web." Her words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken truths. "I want to help you," she continued, leaning forward. "You stood up for yourself in the end. You saved this company. That's not something many people could do." I hesitated. "I don't deserve your help after everything that happened." "Nonsense," Violet said, her voice firm. "You don't need to carry this alone. Let me handle the fallout. You're not going to have a ruined reputation." With her support, the truth finally came to light. The company issued a statement, acknowledging my role in exposing Samuel's embezzlement. Colleagues began looking at me not with judgment but with respect. But despite all that, I knew my time there was over. Over lunch at our favourite amala joint, I broke the news to Ivy. "I can't stay," I said, pushing my plate aside. "There are too many memories here." Ivy waved her fork dramatically. "So what's next, Nancy? Are you going to become a spy or something?" I laughed. "Not quite, but I've been thinking, there are so many women out there like me, stuck in impossible situations. Maybe I can help them." Life looked different now. Samuel was gone, and I was finally moving forward. My mom beamed with pride as I told her about my plans to leave the company. "It's time for a fresh start," I told her over dinner one evening. "I'm proud of you, Nancy," she said, reaching for my hand. "You've done so much, and I know you'll keep rising." My younger brother Danny was there too, finishing off his plate of jollof rice. He was now in school after a successful surgery, working toward his dream of becoming a pediatrician. "You're basically a hero, Nancy," he said, grinning at me, "taking down the bad guy and all. You should have a movie made about you." I laughed, shaking my head. "Not quite a hero, Danny, but thanks." A few months later, I stood in a brightly decorated event centre at the opening event of my non-profit, Hope Horizon. The room felt full of energy as women and men gathered to celebrate this new beginning. Ivy, of course, was the unofficial MC. "Ladies and gentlemen," she shouted, her voice booming through the microphone, "please welcome the Queen of Resilience, the one and only Nancy." As I stepped onto the small stage, My heart pounded. But this time, it wasn't fear. It was excitement, purpose. Thank you all for being here, I began, scanning the room. Hope Horizon is about giving women a chance to find their voice, even when the world tries to silence them. I was once in a dark place, but I found my light. Now, I want to share that light with others. The applause was loud, and in the crowd I spotted Violet, giving me a small, approving smile. Later, as the event wound down, Ivy cornered me near the snack table. So, you're a big shot now, she teased, munching on Puff Puff. Does this mean I get a raise as your assistant? I burst out laughing. Assistant? The only thing you can assist me with is finishing my food. We laughed until tears streamed down our faces, the stress of the past months finally lifting. For the first time in a long while, I felt free. My story wasn't just about survival. It was about finding strength in the darkest moments and creating something beautiful from the chaos. And this time, I was ready for whatever came next.